A very warm welcome to you if you're joining us live or if you're joining us on the recording. You are here for a VAT chat. So, whether you are starting out your career in VAT, maybe you've come to a career crossroads, or you just want to find out what on earth people in indirect tax do all day, you are in the right place. And I am joined today by the wonderful Lucibeth Hammond, co-founder of Ilumis. So, I'm not going to take any wind out of your sails. I will just I will just open in the same way as usual. How did you find yourself in the world of indirect taxes, Lucy Beth, and what's kept you here?
Yes, it's funny when you say like indirect tax, and I always think like my own family still don't know what I do, even after all this time. It's just like my mum says something like she does indirect tax, she doesn't really know what that means at all, which is hilarious. But I was 17 when I got my first job at Deloitte, actually. So I was a baby still in college. I'd been and bought a suit from the local Asda store to go for my first interview. I came from a town where you didn't really land these kind of jobs, and I went and into Deloitte and I'd applied for a job in tax, and I didn't really know what that meant, if I'm perfectly honest. And when I got to my interview, I was interviewing. They said, "So why did you pick VAT?" And I thought, "God, did I? Like, I didn't know that." I was sat there completely blindsided at this point by saying, "Oh well, I'm just really interested in it." And they said, "Well, what do you know about it?" And I just was like completely blank. And I just said to them, like, look, to be honest, like I just want to come and work here and I really want a job and I'll work really hard in whatever the topic is. So actually, I didn't choose it necessarily. I chose tax and then it kind of chose me via random allocation to a team in Deloitte at the time. And gosh, I remember getting there and thinking, I got a winner here because this is way more interesting. And I loved it. And I speak to people who would do like compliance and other taxes or kind of a narrow scope of tax. And I always felt like in VAT, we got to really know the business. We knew how they did business around the world. You kind of knew a business through a different lens, which I really enjoyed. So I remember being quite smug actually when I first started. I thought, oh, that was a good random allocation, but a great one. And I was really happy with it. And then what what's kept me in it, I mean, a lot of variety, I think, is the reality. I like to like chop and change and do different bits, but I've always done that within the realms of the tax and found my way within indirect tax. And I think that there's so much you can do within indirect that actually you can keep yourself busy. And I'm sure we'll come on to talk about my kind of
Mm.
various bits of my pathway. It's different all the time. It's really getting to know like how does this business make money? Does it even make money? What are its trade routes? How does it make kind of supplies around the world? All these different things that I think it just piqued my interest enough to keep me going all
Mm.
these years. I'm 15 years in now, and I think I'm still not bored of it. I still don't know even half of it. You're always kind
Yeah.
of learning and developing.
Yeah, I think that's definitely having come from a financial services background and then looking at, the CTA syllabus and going, oh yes, there's goods. Okay, I've got something.
Yeah,
Definitely got something to learn there.
yeah,
Am
no,
I-
it's true.
and within that, there's always something changing. So I can definitely see that side. Something you mentioned, the variety side of it. Because if anyone were to go on your LinkedIn profile, for example, can see,
Mm.
you mentioned Deloitte, you've spent some time in house, and now, as a co-founder of your own business, and we'll maybe come on to that in more detail later. But just kind of interested in some of the differences or the bits that you've taken from each of those experiences, both being in the practice settings and the advisor side and the
Mhm.
in-house within the business itself.
Yeah, and I think so. I'd spent probably by the time I went in house, I think I'd been like 10 years in practice and at a few different firms, and I'd enjoyed all of those. But it was actually coming out of COVID. I kind of sat and I remember thinking I'd read an article in the New York Times about this concept of like languishing, and they said lots of people post COVID were like languishing, which is like you just felt like you were just pacing through the same thing.
But
And it was probably the first time in my career I kind of thought starting to feel a little bit samey, and I got itchy feet and I just kind of
mm,
said, I'd done all of these. I'd kind of gone sector specific for a lot of my early career. I did a lot of retail and mail order. And then whilst I was at Grant Thornton, I did much more like broad concepts and then did retail again when I moved on. And I kind of thought I could just do with a bit of a change here actually. Um, And a local role came up in house for a head of tax technology. And I just said, I can absolutely do that. It seemed like a great challenge. And it was exactly the right time, I think, for me to just do something completely new. The challenge of in house, I almost felt like I'd spent the prior 10 years being super naive because you think as an advisor, you kind of know what the challenges your clients are facing. You are trying to help them do that. But the reality of living those challenges, I remember just thinking, oh my goodness, like there's no, I think you should do this as you get, that advisor side. It's like,
Yeah.
I think you should. And instead, it's like, no, we must. Like, we actually have to do this now. And I remember feeling like, God, my neck's on the block here, in a way that it hadn't been previously. And the the challenge, like if you think of being in practice, you're managing lots of clients, lots of personalities, big teams, big delivery teams. That then switches a little bit when you're in house and you're managing different people and different internal stakeholders. And you're still selling, but you're not selling your services anymore. You're selling like the brand of tax in house. And that really like
Interesting.
changes. And it changes a lot of what you kind of think about how you operate and how you do business. And I remember we'd gone through like a large scale transformation when I was in house that I'd led, and that went live. And I just remember this like absolute euphoria of saying, we did that, completely
Yeah.
us, we did that, we nailed that. And I was really happy. And then I kind of said, right, well, now what? Classic me, like a bit of itchy, like, oh, what should I do now? And at the time, I remember thinking, I don't feel as naive as I felt before I came here. And actually, I feel like I'd be such a better advisor now for having all of this experience because now I get it. Now I sit in front of a client and I'm like, I know it's hard. Trust me, I know it's hard. And I know you'll see this from your roles now, Nikki. It's like it's really hard in a way that your challenges are completely different in house, and the challenge is different. I had a load of fun being out of the kind of
Yeah.
more corporate big four that I was used to. That's
Got you.
like it's quite a serious space a lot of the time. And when I remember just in house having so much fun, and some of my like really close friends are now, they're people that I met there, and I still see them, and we still do all those things. So
Mm.
it was a completely different challenge, and it challenged me personally, which is I think like I say right time of my life. It was kind of I'd come back from mat leave, done a couple more years at PwC at the time, and then said, right, what's next? Come, hit me with something hard. And it definitely was hard. It was hard
Yeah.
work. And I think the challenge is just completely different.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is an interesting point you make as well, that it's at the right time. Because I think sometimes if you were to have had, just hypothetically, that feeling, that challenge earlier in your career, it could have been, oh, I can't do this. Or, you know, as opposed to when you've got that experience, you've done your apprenticeship for want of a better,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you've done the sort of grunt work to get there. You've seen different things, been in different places and feeling
Yeah.
like this is the right time to try something.
Yeah. And it's interesting, like at both times taking that job in house, I was feeling ultra confident because I remember thinking, I've been brought in to do a transformation. I was brought in to deliver a tax engine. I was thinking, God, that is so my bag. Like, I can do this. And then you kind of wobble a bit when you're in house and you're like, oh God, this is hard actually. There's all
Yeah.
these characters, this whole new world. You come with no reputation, no nothing. You're in someone else's wheelhouse actually,
Mm.
considering like my other previous moves were like moving within the practice industry, and therefore you kind of move with a reputation. You move with nothing when you first move in house
Mm.
because it's a finance team. They don't operate in your circles. They don't know you or any of those things. Um, and then equally, like I remember leaving my in-house role and going back into practice and thinking again, like ultra confident, like I am such a better advisor now for having been there and done it and like walked the walk. And I I always say to people now, if ever you can get a cycle of experience in house, whether it's a secondment or whether it's spending time in house or a different challenge in house or taking on a different role, a broader role, anything, like the sense of challenge and achievement did so much for my confidence. And I just thought, now I kind of reflect on that time really fondly for me personally, being like, God, that taught me a lot. I felt like I walked out of that role with like head held really high and broad shoulders because I had to like
You've
top
done
it
a
up a
lot.
bit in there. Yeah. Yeah, I think I kind of left the big four probably a little bit soft. And my time in house did a really good job of like toughening me up a little bit and preparing me for like, I always laugh. There was this like IT director who was really tough, and he was, quite. We always said he's quite angry on some of these calls, and I was went
Too.
to those calls thinking, broad shoulders, loose. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it
Yeah.
was it was great. Kind of, it was a great cycle of experience, and therefore, if anyone gets the chance to do it, I think at the right time in your career, it can be absolutely pivotal, and it also like upped my value. All these things that came with that time meant that I went back into practice a completely different advisor.
Amazing. And I think it's that, having done sort of kind of similar. So I did a few secondments whilst I was in the Big Four as well. And
Mm.
it felt so scary the first time because
Yeah.
I think you're used to being in that team of, I don't know how many of like 30 plus, all that people. And then you go into a situation, certainly where I was, there was like one other that person. I was like, oh, this suddenly feels a bit sort of feel a bit exposed now. Is it really
Yeah.
20%? I started to, you know, kind of second guess myself. But then after a while, you're like, actually, I can do this. And it sort
Yeah.
of gives you that, okay, I don't, it's still good to have your partner director there for
Yeah.
questions when you
Yeah.
get a bit stuck. But ultimately, you're like, I can do this. And it gives you that
Yes.
little boost to then go back in and go, okay, I can do it. Yeah, got this.
Yeah. I can do it.
What's the next thing?
That's it. I remember thinking like, okay, I've not looked at this bit of like technical things since my exams, so I've not touched it for ages. But I know how. You're still taught all this time, like how to solve the problem, how to go about it. It's the same skills. You just got to kind of get the confidence back to be like, oh yeah, no, I can do that. I went to a large like a global goods business, and I remember thinking, do I know all of these rules? It was like new one-stop shop rules and iOS and
Oh
off
gosh,
and all
yeah.
these things. And I don't know what I'm doing. And then suddenly I'm like, oh no, I do actually. I'll be fine. So it is. It's just a challenge, but a really good one that when you kind of crack it, you feel like this sense of kind of fulfillment.
How's it? And I guess leading on for that, it might be a bit of a, you know, interesting segue. You talk about challenges, new things, you know, being a co-founder of a brand new business
Yes.
after coming from working in a corporate environment. How
Yeah.
is that as a challenge?
I'm having the time of my career. Absolutely. There's something about, and I think again, like my point on timing, I needed that time in house, and I think I'd also then got to the point where I needed to come and do this, and I am so proud. Like at the time it felt like an absolutely terrifying decision. Like we've got a mortgage and bills and all of these things, and I know that you made a similarly bold decision. It's kind of that point of I'm going to leave this like comfort blanket behind and this kind of, partnership and what does that mean and all of those things that I'd held on to since I was 18 years old, sat in my Deloitte job on day one saying, I'm going to be partner and I'm going to go and do this. And then this move actually felt like, am I stepping away from that dream or am I stepping towards it in a different guise? And I think it was definitely stepping towards it in a different guise. It was like all the entrepreneurial spirit that I'd learned from my time in house, being really close to this like founder led business that was going on and taking, it had gone from the founder's garage to being a £2 billion revenue business. You're surrounded by these entrepreneurs. I think I then almost struggled to go back to the environment of like this huge pyramid where you didn't have any autonomy. I didn't have the same level of autonomy in the way that I had before. And so that's what I was kind of craving. And that's absolutely, I've now got that in spades.
Yep.
Now
You've
there's
gone from one
every,
extreme.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And from every like micro decision to every macro decision, like, and my co-founder John, we both said at the same time, like, let's just do it. Let's go and take that risk. And worst case, like the VAT world is still there. I feel like there's a lack of talent and some great jobs out there. So it's kind of a case for me where I thought, well, how risky is this? It's probably a temporary risk rather than like a lifetime risk. And so now like the challenges are different. I probably spend a bit less time on the kind of doing in some ways, and then in other ways, because we're like a senior led team on delivery, I'm more hands-on than I have been for years.
Hey.
And so it's probably a bit more, I kind of feel like my level of when I am hands-on here, I am almost doing a kind of similar role to how I was when I was in house, which feels nice. I'm kind of never really feel like a step removed. I feel like part of the team a bit more. So it's back to kind of, hands on, getting into it, solving
Mm.
problems. They're my favorite bits. It's the reason that, I've moved into tech. It's the reason I do all of these projects, is because I'm like, I get to solve problems for a living, and I get to just do more of that now under our own brand that we get to mold and shape and make decisions on. So yeah, I'm having the absolute time of my career. I feel really lucky.
I was so pleased to hear that as well, because there is always that trepidation when it's something completely new,
Yeah.
and you don't have the employee benefit package and
Yeah.
and all of the kind
Yeah.
of, as you say, I think you described it as almost a comfort blanket, sort of being
Yes.
within that structure and just going, oh, this is all new. I have to think about my own accounts now. I have to
Yeah.
think about, you know, employees and getting
Yeah.
real-time reporting, all of that fun stuff, setting up a firm as well, if you like
Yes. Yeah.
regulation around it. It's not
Yeah.
just a case of, you wake up one morning, it's happened. So, kudos to you guys for getting all of
Thanks.
that, that
Thank
admin
you.
and getting it off the ground.
Yeah.
'Cause it's not a straightforward process,
No, it's
not
not. And I
straightforward.
just think like how fortunate I am. I remember thinking, like I said at the top of the call, like my mum still doesn't know what I do, bless her, and she tries really hard and she still doesn't understand it. But I remember always thinking, God, what we do is like really niche. Like nobody really knows what indirect tax is. Nobody really gets it in the real world. And I would often reflect on like how niche I'd gone. And bear in mind, I've done this job since I was, like I said, I was 18 when I was at Deloitte. And I remember thinking, this is really niche. And then to now think, okay, well, I run a consulting firm. We've grown over the last year to a team of 6 people. We're out dealing with like some of the country's biggest blue chip clients. Who knew that that kind of niche, what felt like a niche career choice, could do this? And I now, build my day how I want to build it. I design my kind of life around the business and all those things. I think, God, how did 18-year-old me know that this career choice could deliver this? That I would just, it would have absolutely like blown my mind back then. And I think that's the world of VAT, is actually you learn about business and you learn about finance and you learn people and networks and different skills that actually they would pass into anything, and therefore as a it's not as niche as I first thought it was. Yes, the subject matter, like who else in the real world cares about the VAT rate of clothing?
Yeah.
That's not a real thing in the real world. But actually, it's opened every door I ever wanted to open. And it's never stopped me from doing anything that I then wanted to go and do, which is pretty incredible, I think, for like a career choice that felt like a niche initially.
Absolutely. And I think because it's one of those worlds, I think, or this is what I find anyway, that you talk to someone, you're like, oh, do you know so and so? They're like, oh yeah, because I'm a member of this
Yeah.
group, or they used to work here, or we used to work together and then they moved. It's such a
Yeah.
small world. But I like to think it's a very nice one. Like the fact that I have the VAT chat, people will come and talk to me, which is
Yeah.
lovely.
They're nice people. There are
Yeah.
lots of nice people. I also think there's something about like when you're an indirect, we were always like the smaller group of the wider tax intake. So I don't know if we got like a chip on our shoulder about being the smaller player. I don't know, but part of me is like we seem to really band together very well. Like
Yeah.
the Vatties are always like, oh yeah, And I was speaking to a client recently. She's like, I just love VAT. I'm like, oh my God, you're my people. Yes.
Come join us.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. So it's just funny. It's a real sense of community. And I think that comes from being like, everyone does know, people in the industry, who's doing what, who's moving, who's where, all these things. I think it's quite special, and quite unique in some ways.
It's good. And obviously one of the reasons behind this is to try and encourage more people to come and join
Yes.
us.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah.
Surely that's a no-brainer. For all the reasons we've said. Yeah, absolutely. It's way more fun. And I do remember trying to I've convinced various people over the years to like migrate from corporate into VAT. I'm always like, look how much more fun it is over here. Come on, it's way sexier over here. And the reality is it's still VAT, it's still tax, but we've got to try and make it a bit more fun.
Like, we have the exciting cases, EV charging, one of the latest
See?
ones out this week. Yeah.
This is it. Yeah,
Yeah.
nobody else gets those kind of fun, do they? That's reserved for us. We're very, very special.
Yeah, these all these talking points we have. It's like, do you know about Jaffa cakes? Are they a
Do
cake or a
you?
biscuit? Well,
See, that's it. That's always a good conversation
yeah.
starter.
But that, I mean, I'm not an expert in food. I always direct those queries elsewhere.
Yeah,
It gets too
absolutely.
complicated.
Yeah.
Far too complicated.
Yeah. I've got people I know for those discussions. It's
Yeah.
certainly not me. No.
No, absolutely. And then within the work, because you mentioned sort of focusing on a niche of a niche almost. So you've got your
Yeah.
indirect taxes, and you've got VAT, and then you've got the area that you guys at Ilumis, apologies, Ilumis, get my teeth back in, specialize in. So looking at, and you can explain better than me, I'm sure, the way I see it, the kind of intersection between the taxes, the indirect, and the technology side.
Yes.
And a lot of people talk about, tax technology is coming, we need to be aware of it. What is it actually like so what do you actually do
Yeah.
in turn
What
on
do
the
we
tax
do?
technology side? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting conversation for us internally as well at the minute. Is like, how do you best position what we do? Because actually there's this there's this focus from everybody on like tech, and it's buzzy and it's great and everyone wants to make a ton of money and go and do all of this great stuff. I think actually at the heart of it, it's not a technology question, it's a process question. It's I have to file my taxes. How do I get from running my business to filing my taxes? And that isn't a case of like, there's not going to be one bit of kit that we come in and we layer on and we say, oh, it's great, it's finished, completed it. This is a kind of multitude of like people, bits of technology, bits of system, bits of process, all these different things. So what we do is solve the problem of getting from A to B. So to get from A to B, I need really good data, starting point number one. And then I need some really good technology that pulls that data, that wrangles it, that does some good stuff. And then I really need some really well trained humans. And those trained humans might have some AI kind of layers of capability that we can go and ping them and get them some more support on. Or we might train them via like traditional things like actual training or things like that. And then we might say, now I need to go and file some returns. Do I need an outsourced provider? Do I do it myself? All these things. So it's like across every journey of getting from A to B, there might be between 1 and 10 kind of touch points and decisions. And our job is to solve the problem of getting from A to B in the most effective, most efficient, practical way for whatever hands we're in. So that might be that the business has only got a one-person tax team. So we're never going to be solving A to B by saying the human's going to do it all. Or we might have a 300-person tax team, in which case the humans are definitely going to be involved in A to B.
Yeah.
So I always think my job and our job is absolutely in that intersection of getting the taxes and the technology to work, but actually it's about how do I practically get from A to B, and that's ultimately where we fit in. Is every micro decision along that way, how can we best help clients to make that decision? And then when you've picked a bit of kit, we love to build it.
Yeah.
We're coders. We kind of build the technology as well, or we implement other people's technologies, and that's the kind of the product of all of the decisions that come along the way. But fundamentally, we're process specialists.
Yeah, and I think that's I really like that. So I mean, I love processes and getting into like
I know you
actually
do.
what's happening.
Yeah.
Actually what's happening. How can we make it better? Do we need to do that? Can we do this? And if we've got 5 or 6 parties, how do we get everyone knowing what everyone else is doing and get
Yes.
it to um
Yeah.
will be to get and I think often with certainly some of the discussions I hear about technology, it's let's get XYZ because it's going to do it for us. At
Mm-hmm.
which point I'm always like, but what about the people and how they use it and
Yeah.
where does it fit and which bits do you want it to do and
Yeah.
thinking about the practical aspect because I think it can be quite tempting to say I want XYZ and it's going to solve everything. It's
Yes.
going to make my life easier. I'm just going to press a button, it'll be done.
Yeah. So true. It's so true. And I think it's like when you uh, again, I don't think I would have known this had I not been in house. Is like there's no silver bullet that's going to fix these things. There's no, you can't just put a layer of technology on it and wishful thinking hope that it does it all. It's like all of these different bits. Like, what's the actual process impact? How do the people feel? Are they going to use it? Do they care? Do they think it's good? Or are they going to switch it off? All of these things. And I
Yeah.
think when I was in house, I had to implement stuff from that side of the table that I had to get everyone on board with. They had to, it was costly, it was time intensive, all these things that actually once you've sat there, you then realize it's not about the technology. It's about the wrapper that comes around it that says this is going to be really well implemented, yes, but actually it's at a time that we're ready for it. It's got the right bits of functionality, all of these things that mean it's different to, layer on this shiny thing on the top. Yeah.
The like shiny, shiny icing on the VAT cake.
Yes, exactly that. Exactly that. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so it's part of it. No, I think that's really interesting as well, because as I say, we often talk about tax tech and like, oh, we just hear the buzzwords, but to actually
Yeah.
hear what it is you're going in and doing, I think is really, really interesting. As I said, I get excited about it, so I'll put
Yeah.
that to one side. Put that to one side.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it's ultimately about like I like to solve problems. So I see like getting from A to B as this great challenge. It's like how can we do that really well? And other people really love getting out of bed to assess whether Jaffa cake is a cake or a biscuit. And that's what I love about that is that like some people can niche down so hard in the depths of the legislation and they adore their job.
mm,
I can't do that. I'm terrible at it. So instead, I'm like, no, I'm an A to B person. I'm going to get
mm,
this and I'm going to make sure we can do this really well and that our people know what they're doing and all of this. But I love the fact that it's a career that is capable of giving everybody a different view of that. And I'm a problem solver. I'm at home, I'm our fixer.
mm.
I fix things when things go wrong. Not physically, but like
Yeah,
we've got to get this person here, this, and I get to do that for a living, which I think is,
yeah.
great. But I love the fact that our tax can just say, it can give careers to everybody that wants to kind of delve into the world in different ways.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I love that sort of it. I think it probably leads on to my next question as well. So if you had 17-year-old Lucy Beth in front of you, just about to go to the Deloitte interview, let's say, what would your words of wisdom be? Or for any of our watchers, listeners who might be in a similar position?
Yeah, I think I my life has changed no end, and I have changed no end in that time. But I remember going to that interview, and as I said, I came from a small town who, people didn't go for these jobs, right? And my mum just said to me, tell them that you'll work really hard. And I've just taken that right through.
Mm.
That has just been, work really hard, ask a ton of questions, and just be really open to the path that this will take you on. Like, I would never have thought back then that I'd be where I am now, but God, how thrilled I
Yeah.
am, and it's just keep at it and keep being curious. And that same me that sat there saying, oh, I'll just work really hard. That's, I always think I was a hard worker in the room. And that was enough to just keep me kind of progressing and moving through and enjoying it. And then now, I'm 15 years in, now I'm kind of like less chaotically working really hard. I think I spent a lot of time on the hamster wheel of like, I want to get to a partner, I want to work really hard, I'm going to do
Right.
all this stuff, it's going to be great, and
Yeah.
then make myself ill from working too hard
Mm.
kind of thing. So it's kind of this now, if I'm being a bit more reflective, I would say to 17-year-old me, yeah, work really hard, but look after yourself and have fun.
Yeah.
So don't forget that bit. Don't put yourself so heavily into your work. But every micro decision along my career path brought me here in a world where like I am making all these amazing decisions. I go to the gym every day because my calendar is mine. I work where I want to work. We do these fun stuff. We take the team. We were in Spain last week. We've done all this fun stuff. I think I don't regret any single move I made in
Mm.
my career or any single choice that, specialize in this or do this. I've just always kind of followed my nose and trusted that you can get through it with hard work. So I think that's a really long way of saying to
Yeah.
17-year-old me, just go in and work really hard and you'll find your way.
Yeah. And it sounds like taking advantage of those opportunities as well, because you were sort of
Yeah.
in the zone, you're able to, when these little, as you say, the micro decisions, when you came
Yeah.
to the point of making one, you're well placed to do it as well.
Yeah, I think that's right. And we spoke about like the network and the people and all of those things. This is a place where people want to look after you and people want to see you succeed and all of those things. So I think you've set yourself up as being that person that will say yes to things and will try things and will do their best and will work hard and all of those things means that you have options and choices. And it's the same thing I say to my kids now is like, work hard enough that you give yourself choice. That's all I want for my children is like, I don't care what they go on to do. Me and their dad both do VAT, so God help, please don't do VAT for a living. But it's like, they just, I think would be an incredibly boring household. Maybe we'll be VAT. Maybe there'll be five of us all doing VAT. Who knows? But I always think, gosh, you must bring some variety in the household, guys. Maybe they should go and do some corporate tax. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think it's like your career should just be about making the decisions that give you choice, so you can navigate that in whatever way you will.
And I think, and that is a wonderful note to end on, I think. So thank you so much for sharing your insights, what you're doing now, your journey to get there. It's been lovely chat. I'm sure we could have carried on. But
No,
yeah,
thank you.
thank you very much. And yeah, if anybody would like to watch further of that chats, I've got a YouTube channel. It's about 20 years behind everyone else, but there is a YouTube channel, That Chat with Nikki. That's Nikki. So you can find past episodes on there. And we look forward to welcoming you to the next one. See you very soon.